Welcome to Exit Algorithms, the podcast where we decode what it really takes to unlock growth, streamline operations, and prepare your business for a high-value exit. I'm your host, Pete Vera, and today we got Alex Maibaum in the building. He's
Hey,
a
pleasure to
supply
meet you.
chain, yes, sir. He's a supply chain veteran, tons of experience in the industry, founder and CEO of Predictive Supply Chain Solutions, a cloud-based software and consulting company that helps mid-size businesses forecast smarter, cut excess inventory, and unlock some serious cash flow. Alex, super stoked to have you. Welcome to the show.
Thanks a lot for having me on today. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to get into this. Do you mind? We can start off to share a bit about your background. Feel free to go as far back as you want, and then yeah, just sort of your business journey.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've kind of worked my way from the ground up. I was really, I've been really fortunate. I've been introduced to a lot of businesses over the course of my life, and I've had a lot of opportunities in different parts of businesses, and I've always found that to be really helpful, whether I'm doing sales, marketing, working on a warehouse floor. Every single piece of the business you touch, you kind of learn a little something new. What's going on in with it? What's the nuance of that particular department? All those things kind of fed the interest throughout my career to understand how businesses are functioning, where the inefficiencies are located, and how they can continue to function better. Probably the biggest unlock, though, I realized over the course of the time of working in these different businesses is how frequent it is that these departments really don't communicate with each other. Sometimes they do communicate, but they don't communicate effectively. And I think a lot of that is really driven by the fact that the ways that we communicate between businesses and between departments can sometimes be coded. We speak in the language of that department. And that can sometimes create barriers when you're trying to communicate and make decisions across the business. This was a really big unlock I had when I worked for the company Spy Optic, a little Southern California-based sunglass company. Not little, they're a pretty big Southern California-based sunglass company. And what I started to notice was that as I was doing data analytics for them, the information they were trying to get was there. It was there all the time. What we needed to do is decode it so that when the sales team was communicating with the marketing team, communicating with the operations team, everybody was speaking that same language. We used the application Power BI there to actually build out a reporting environment for them. And it was really fascinating watching how once the data was together, everybody agreed this is our source of truth. This is where the information is coming from. How quickly this, I'm going to use the word synergy here. I know it's the buzzword, but that is really what happened. You started seeing synergy across these departments. People were all talking about how can we optimize what the business is doing. And we started to see a lot of unlocks. I took that with me to a couple of other businesses after that. One of the areas and kind of the genesis of what I realized was the one of the biggest gaps in businesses was the disconnect between sales and marketing, operations, and finance and executive teams. The analogy I love using is it's like a ping pong table. You've got sales and marketing trying to do what they need to do on their side of the ping pong table, and you've got a finance and executive team on the other side trying to keep the business moving. And what's happening is the ball is just going back and forth all day long between those two teams. Kind of in the middle there, you've got operations. We're kind of sticking our hand up every once in a while, trying to grab that ball and try and make sense of what the business is doing. And what you have here is, again, you don't have a synergy. You don't have synergy across these departments. And it makes sense when you think about it. Finance is speaking in very specific finance terms, works really closely with executive teams to make sure that the business is going in the direction that they're trying to go. And then you got sales and marketing teams. They're extremely agile. They're moving quickly. They're reacting to what's happening in the market. Those two things don't always communicate well with each other. And then operations is trying to figure out how do you feed the engine. I'm feeding it coal today, wood tomorrow, steam, electricity, you name it. We're trying to keep everything moving, but the realities of the business shift from finance and executive teams. We don't have enough cash. Sales and marketing team, I need more of this. The timeline on those things doesn't line up. So what I realized is, again, this became a data visualization challenge, is really what it came down to. How can I give businesses the information they need to make better decisions in a structured manner? Remove those barriers of communication. The way I did that was laying out the data. It's what we do at Predictive SCS today. I laid out the data so that the sales and marketing team can see what their trajectories are. Operations can see how that impacts the business, and then finance can provide their input for this is how much we have to spend. What that does is it provides better operational clarity to businesses, and that's really the key unlock to a lot of these businesses. You're no longer reacting to what's happening. Sales and marketing has a new opportunity, they're going for it. Now you're reacting to what's happening. Leveraging a system like this allows you to be much more proactive. Even if things change, sales and marketing accelerates. You're able to see that moving within the business. You're able to see that in the form of your inventory and your future inventory positions. And it allows you to make much more proactive strategic decisions. Now, for our conversation, what we're talking about is that translates immediately into operational cash flow efficiency. If you're not
Mm.
buying too much inventory, your business is turning inventory faster. That's your business term of the day there. Inventory turns means is that you're converting inventory into cash faster. For your business, that means you have more cash on hand to do more things with it. So that's how we got to where we are today. And it's been really exciting watching a lot of the businesses we work with grow as a result.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that analogy you used. I've heard a few. There's the ball, the game one, and also kind of an engine. It feels like you're kind of making it easier for all the parts of the business to communicate. You're like the oil in the machine.
That's correct. Yeah, I think again the functional disconnect here is if businesses don't have a way to if there's no lubricant to allow these businesses to communicate between each of the different departments, yeah, you have a functional breakdown. I was just talking to somebody recently, and one of the things somebody mentioned to me is it's like a car is another great analogy for a business. Most people understand generally how a car works. There's an engine in there, it consumes fuel, and that makes the car go. When you open up the hood of the car, though, and you start to look at the engine, there's a ton of components. That is your business. You have finance running your accounting department, you have your sales teams working in the field, you have your operations, you have your warehouse team managing the product every single day. All those components work together. If they're not lubricated, things start breaking really quickly if you're not doing the maintenance on them. And that's often where you start to see these disconnects happen.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I like that car analogy. I've heard the plane analogy. Yeah, with each one wing is sales, one wing's marketing, the like fuselage in the
Very
middle is the
level.
overhead.
Yep, exactly right. Yeah, it's really fascinating how quickly you can see the change within a business when you actually start to level all those things out because your team moving from the constant feeling of firefighting, oh my gosh, we're out of stock on something, or we're really low on stock, we didn't place an order for it, or we didn't realize that this product was going to accelerate like this. Last month when we looked at this, it seemed like we had plenty of stock. This month, all of a sudden, it seems like we're really low on stock, or finance is saying, hey, the business wants $200,000 worth of buy dollars to go buy new stock of product, and finance is going, yeah, we can only afford 100,000. How do you
Hmm.
bridge those gaps between those challenges within a business? Because as a business owner, there's opportunity. So if you had 200,000, you could sell all that inventory. But now you're stuck in this position of saying, I have to constrain the business. What we really want to do is we want to unlock these businesses to be able to say, no, we can get to that 200,000 of buying, but we're going to do it strategically in a way that's actually going to make that inventory more impactful for the business.
Yeah, no, I love that. Yeah, and you mentioned reactive versus proactive. Is that kind of the probably the biggest, would you say, value add is being able to predict and get ahead of
Yeah,
things?
I don't think it's necessarily so much about predicting as so much as it's about trying to understand and figure out. It is proactive, but breaking that down a little bit further, it's about seeing what your business is actually doing today and understanding what's working and what's not working. In business, there's, especially within operations, there's the 80-20 rule. 80% of
Hmm.
your sales comes from 20% of your product. In a lot of businesses, I see it's even smaller than that. It's like 90-10. You got 90% of your revenue coming from 10% of your products. So what we see a lot is skew bloat, where businesses bring in more and more and more products trying to chase more revenue, but they don't understand how much revenue is actually being generated by that product they're bringing in. But then they experience this compounding challenge of, Well, now we brought this product in, we need to keep it in stock because we have a customer that's buying it. And so we want to make sure it's available for those customers. And so
Yeah.
one of the things that we work on routinely with these customers is better understanding what's actually driving the revenue to the business. So, and this is not to say like you can't go buy new things. The idea is to limit the scope of what you're buying so you're not exposing yourself to excess risk. So when we talk about being proactive, we're talking about working with your factories. Can you lower your minimum order quantities, MOQs? And
Mm.
you get better payment terms and things like that that can ease the strain of your cash flow, keep those products available because we always want to be injecting new products to our customers. We just don't want to get to this point where we have this massive SKU portfolio of products that's driving
Mm.
very little revenue and putting enormous cash strain on the business.
Interesting. Yeah, that's a cool application of the Pareto principle, the 80/20. Is that probably the biggest issue you find with the businesses you work with?
Yeah, most of the businesses that we're working with, you have two compounding issues. You're going to have that 80/20 rule where you have a mismatch in the number of SKUs, and then what we're finding is a significant overstock in products that just aren't moving product in a consistent manner. If you want to get complex, we get into the difference between like statistical analysis, demand planning. That's really the forward looking of how businesses are understanding what they need, not just today, but tomorrow and in the future. That becomes really important for businesses to better predict what they need. And that
Mm.
will drive a lot of that proactive nature in the businesses. It starts with trying to figure out, to answer your question again, we've got too much inventory. Yes, that's a common thing that we see in these businesses. Too many products, too much inventory spread across all those products. So what do you start to do? We start to find ways that we can trim the products that really don't make the
Mm.
most sense to the business. Let's actually put a dollar to that. If you've got $1 million business and you've got the majority of your business is being run on that 80/20 rule, that means you've got 800K of revenue coming from 20% of your SKUs. To break down in easy math, you've got 100 SKUs. That means 20 of those SKUs are driving 800K of your revenue. And you've got this other 80 that are just kind of languishing there. But if you actually go and start looking at those SKUs, and maybe you're holding 100 widgets of one of those that are in that lower category there, but you're only selling one a month. So you have very limited revenue that's coming from a SKU that's holding a ton of stock. But if that's eating up your balance sheet because you are now stocking that product, it's taking a long time for you to get through it. The analysis here is understanding, okay, well, I can't buy less because I have a
Mm.
minimum order quantity with my factory. The best way to start looking at this is understanding what is your carrying cost of that product. So if you have to buy the minimum, how long is it going to take you to move it? It's going to take you over a year. That's a lot of time to be holding the stock of that product. Then you start understanding what's the cost of holding that. Think about your opportunity cost. If I bought 10 of those instead of 100, what could I buy 80 or 90 of another product that maybe you're turning over 4, 5, 6 times a year? That becomes your cash unlock.
Yeah. Wow. Powerful. I love that. I'd love to dig in a little bit further on the data that you use, your software, maybe in, in layman's terms. If you could describe your process a little bit, what numbers you use and sort of how you draw conclusions from the data.
Yeah, and I think one of the most powerful things that I coach businesses on is there's a level of complexity that you can go through. What we're doing is can be somewhat advanced, and there's a tremendous value application to businesses that do adopt this. But I think it's also important for business to realize there's a step before that that a lot of businesses can take, and there's a lot of opportunities there. There's tons of tools out there today that can help you build rudimentary versions of a supply and demand plan. And when you start to leverage those, if you understand what you're looking at, they can be a very big unlock for your business. Again, driving towards that proactive nature of planning instead of reactive of, oh my gosh, we're out of this product today. We need to order it tomorrow. So at its base, to build something like this out, and I think this is important because the goal here is to help these businesses grow, right? So I can pitch my software all day long, but it doesn't help a lot of these businesses need to grow. So the real idea here is how do we help these businesses to actually leverage tools that are out there for whatever stage of the business they're at. If they can continue to grow, there's always opportunity. for these businesses at that to continue at that point. So the first thing I would that there's four key components to building out a successful supply plan. You need to understand your
Mm.
inventory positions. So establish a source of truth. If you're a business that doesn't have a good source of truth, start there. Really dive into that. Is that Shopify? Do you have a warehouse that you're paying a 3PL? Can you get a report from that 3PL? Can you get it scheduled so it's automated? Leverage a tool if you're not familiar with Excel to populate into a static space that has your inventory information. Not uncommon. Almost every single day, I run into businesses that have zero system at all. And so the first thing we do is literally build a structured environment for them where we can say, this is your source of truth. This is what your current inventory position is. Once you have your inventory, the next thing you want to do, consolidate all your purchasing. A lot of businesses are maybe using QuickBooks where they're entering their bills and everything, but they may not have a consolidated purchasing system. ERPs exist, but ERPs are very expensive. So if you don't have a good consolidated view of everything you're buying, just build out a simple Excel spreadsheet. What is it you bought? How much did you buy? What price did you pay for it? When is it expected to come in? Those are the
Yeah.
key pieces of information. If you know that, you can continue to kind of evolve the way you're looking at what's going on. So you've got your inventory and your purchasing. Next is understand what your historical sales are. So if you're in Shopify, you can run a really simple report. Understand what your SKUs are, your individual product. Use UPC or SKU, and then run your last 12 months. If you've got 24 months of data, even better. If you trust the AI models that are out there, you can literally take that data, load it into an AI model and say, hey, can you populate out, like, is there any trend analysis or anything on any of these items? That's what we would
Perfect.
do as our first step. We go a little more complex than that, obviously. We have some proprietary algorithms that we use, but you can go that first simple step of understanding, like, hey, here's what I did in the last 12, 24 months. What do the next 12 months look like? And that can actually serve two purposes. You can take that information and you can apply it into a financial model now. And that can be really powerful because there's frequently a disconnect between, again, finance and executive teams saying this is what we want the business to do and what the actual business is doing. And sometimes that can be a huge unlock. We thought the business was growing at 20 or 30%, or we want the business to grow at 20 or 30%. But right now, we're only seeing 5%. Where is that disconnect coming from? Is it because we think we're going to be releasing some products in the second half of the year and that's going to drive growth? But that's great. This is how we start talking about being proactive in nature. So now you've got your inventory, your purchasing, and your sales, your historical sales. The last piece to this that will really unlock is understanding if you have big commitments that are out in the future. This is one
Mm.
that stumbles up a lot of businesses. If you're starting to expand your business and you start to work with large retail chains, for example, Walmart, Target, Kroger, or it could be something like a Dick's Sporting Goods, a Mac Tools, or something like that, they often place very, very large orders. And if you
Mm.
don't log those, you're going to miss the opportunity, or if you don't start planning for them. So I see this routinely where somebody will come in and they'll place a really large order and the business gets really excited, right? It's like, yeah, we logged in, that $1 million sale. And then ops is going, oh my gosh, we just blew out 99% of our inventory. Like, and it's going to take us 4 months to replen. You just shot
Yeah.
yourself in the foot, right? So getting that last piece of information and always having that in there becomes really important because now the ops team is correctly planning in the future, recognizing that there's big opportunity. But this also goes into exactly why we want to build this all out. Because now, if we connect all these things together, your inventory, your future purchasing, those two in particular, now when you do have that opportunity, you have the data in front of you to be able to say, can we take advantage of this opportunity? We just locked in a big deals with Dick's Sporting Goods. We're going to sell into 150 of their stores. It's going to take 1,000 units of inventory. Well, I've only got 1,400 units of inventory on hand, and it takes me 6 months to replenishment. That product, it's coming from Southeast Asia. That could be a problem right away.
Mm.
So understanding that and having that visibility helps the business to make a much more strategic decision. So it really boils down to getting that data first, figuring out what it is. And that's a core area where we will help a lot of businesses at first. Let's figure out what your data is. Let's understand that. Let's build that source of truth. Then we can start looking at proactively, what does your business need to do? Let's work on the execution plan after that.
Got it. Oh, I appreciate that. Yeah, that answer. Really good layout of the process and really good takeaways as well. Um,
Awesome.
Yeah, on the topic of technology, you mentioned AI a little bit, and it's hard not to mention AI these days. But I'm especially interested in your perspective, being in supply chain data, using technology every day as a core part of your business. How is AI impacting SCS, or how are you guys leveraging it?
Yeah, for us, one of the biggest unlocks is leveraging it on the demand planning forecasting side. Traditionally, this would be in the role of a data scientist, and it would be kind of restricted to much larger businesses because data scientists are expensive. It's a very specialized course of work. You've got very, very complex mathematical equations, models, and things like that you can apply. So it was kind of always segmented off to the side as like, if you can afford it, it's awesome. Now that entire space is opened up. I think the key thing to understand though is just because you can generate something doesn't mean it's correct. And so
Mm.
there's two big things that we really focus on when we leverage AI. We use it all the time, every single day. But when we plug in information, there's two things to consider. One, understand the security level. The free version of all the large language models are open source. So if you
Mm.
plug your product costing information into there, the language model is going to retain that information. So just you got to be aware of that. If you're paying for some of them, at least today, they're telling you they're not training it on your data. But so that's a key component to be aware of is, just making sure that you're secure with the information that you're giving the model. The second is validating the information that comes from the output. It's really easy to build what would be called a black box within a model. That means, hey, here's my sales information, give me a forecast. Well, if you don't understand how the model built the forecast, you effectively have a black box. You can't go back through the math and understand what it generated. Even if it built out, Claude is a great use case for this. It can build out it can do things like layering in Python models now and things like that. Really, really advanced, really cool. This is stuff that I would have taken hours, weeks, months building out in my, early in my career.
Mm.
Now it can be done in less than a minute. That's really awesome, but you need to make sure that you have somebody on staff that can translate what it's actually doing, because then you want to make sure you can validate it. Biggest roadblock I see businesses run into, we created something, we can't update it. So I spent all this
Mm.
time building this really cool AI forecast model or the supply chain model, but we functionally don't know how to rebuild it or keep it going. And so you got a one-time snapshot. Somebody spent a ton of time probably going back and forth, iterating on it, but you don't have a great way to actually update the information. So now you're in a position where you're having to go back through and iterate again,
Got it.
and you lose a little bit of that core understanding of what's actually happening with the business.
Yeah, wow, good warnings too. Yeah, it makes sense. Black box. I haven't heard that term used in this context. Smart though.
Yeah,
Makes perfect sense. Hmm.
I think that's a really critical one because again, consultants used to do this all the time, right? Like they build something, but then they basically lock what they built. Like that's their IP. And
Mm.
so in the consulting world, we call that the black box. And what we want to avoid now is building those things. But the AI models can be notorious for accidentally doing it. They're not doing it nefariously. They're just building things for you without giving you the background information on how it was built or what was built to or what it's going to do, how all the different pieces. Here's a great tip. If you do build something out, go back to the LLM at the end of your build and tell it to give you a wiki. Write me a
Mm.
wiki now for what you just built, and it should go through and it should create either a doc. If you're using Claude, it will create a document for you. If you're using Gemini, it'll give you a write up. It'll tell you exactly what formulas were used, what those formulas do, how they function. That can be the key because now you don't just understand that something was built, you understand that exactly how it works. Now you've gotten a
Mm.
300-page binder now that tells you the manual for what everything is, but at least it's not lost, and you can empower yourself to actually go in. What becomes really exciting then is if you start to read into what these things are doing and how they're generating this information, you can actually go back into your chat now and you can reprompt, hey, this piece doesn't seem like it's working. Can we reformulate this piece right here because something seems to be outputting that I'm not expecting. When I'm doing demand planning, as an example, there's a nuance to this particular business. It seems like they have a sales spike in every other year in this month because they're doing a promotion. Cool. It can go back through and it can iterate on our demand plan model to build in the nuance specifically for that. But I'm able to pull a specific part of the formula out and say, hey, I think we need to modify this piece because it's not interacting correctly with this business. But I'm only able to do that because I'm able to get the wikis out when I'm building these things.
Wow. Yeah, excellent advice. Yeah, I think especially relevant for people that are building with AI. Do you use it and have any other use cases, maybe even in your personal life or other applications?
I mean, I'm using it all the time now. I love to cook, so I'll use it when I validate recipes.
Yeah.
I'll like, yeah, I don't have this particular ingredient. I'm thinking of using this ingredient. Can I use this instead? Uh, but you're going to create a sweeter flavor by doing that. So balance it out using this thing instead. So, yeah, there's tons of applications outside of business. I've built my workout plans using AI now, which has been a lot of fun. But yeah, I think the applications here, I've heard this before from somebody else. The the application of AI can be almost overwhelming. And the
Mm,
best way is to just kind of get started and do something simple. What do you enjoy doing? And then just start tinkering in that space because it's a space where you're functionally knowledgeable. And so the interaction you have becomes more positive as a result of that. I love cooking. So when I'm cooking and I'm interacting with the AI, I can see, oh, that doesn't seem correct, or I know that I can understand how that would work. So I'm able to validate what I'm talking about or what I'm interacting with. Whereas if you go and you do something like finance and you're not a finance person, it spits out this massive, detail. It's like, oh my gosh, this is an MBA crash course right here, and I'm not ready for an MBA crash course in finance.
yeah, yeah, definitely. That's 100% true. Yeah, it's as useful as you make it. I feel, your inputs will dictate how useful it is. A lot of people, some people are getting fed up with the hallucinations or just like how sometimes it just spits out crap that's not true or whatever. But I feel like it's important to realize humans do that too, And at the end of the day, if you ask it to generate questions for you, if you make it more of a dialogue, it
Right.
becomes a lot more useful and it learns your habits and the way you talk and um,
That's why I say, like, get that wiki so that you understand not just that it created something for you, but how it created it for you. Because then if it does hallucinate, you're going to see that in the wiki. You're going to go, wait a second, that doesn't make any sense at all. Again, this is more applicable to, when you're running Excel type stuff or where you have complex formulas or mathematical equations. It's definitely more applicable in that space. But there's equal use cases, I'm sure, outside where, when I'm cooking, for example, if it makes a recommendation for me, I'll sometimes ask it to link me to a chef that is using that particular method. So now I can cross check and understand, like, yeah, does that actually make sense? When I'm using it in demand planning, there's times where I'm by no means a professional statistician or anything like that. I'm familiar enough with the numbers and how things are working that I understand now how to build out demand plans. But again, this is an MBA, PhD level course of work in statistical analysis to build these things out. And so there's times where it'll give me really, really complex methods of analysis. And I'll tell it, like, hey, can you link me to an article that I can go read to help me understand what this is that you're building? Like, what is this method of analysis that you're building out for me? So far as I know, I mean, I think it's working, but again, this is way beyond my pay grade, if you will. So I need to understand exactly what we're talking about. And then I have to decide how deep I want to go down the rabbit hole myself. But at least I know it's not just hallucinating. It's giving me something where I can go and I can actually read, some PhD paper or something like that. Okay, now I understand what Croston's method is. Great. Never heard that in my college degree, but or in my college course, but at least I have a way to go validate that it's not just pulling something out of the rabbit, out of the hat.
Definitely. No, that's smart. Make sure what it's saying is true. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
don't trust it on face value. But yeah, no, it's been a great conversation. I know we're wrapping up here on time,
Cool.
but I just want to give you the floor, Alex. Any final words? Where can we find you, SCS, and if you have any last word advice for listeners?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks. I really appreciate it. Predictive Supply Chain Solutions. You can find us predictivescs.com. Our goal is really to help businesses grow. That's our passion. Come from we are operators. Functionally, we're operators, and we've come from a lot of high growth, hyper accelerating businesses, and we've seen what this type of solution can do for businesses. It's functionally why we wrote the platform that we wrote. It was missing for the businesses we were working in. And so we wanted to make something that we could actually leverage to help other businesses continue to grow. And so we're really excited to be continuing to work with businesses. We do continue to expand the people that we talk to. Our biggest hope is that we can be a resource to as many businesses as possible. So reach out to us. Let us know if you have questions. We're happy to, chat. One of the things we love is the fact that we are still functionally operators. As much as we're building a software solution, the goal is actually to continue to be operators. I think one of the biggest challenges that exists in the market today is there's a ton of solutions out there, and a lot of them are written from a software and engineer's perspective. And that disconnects sometimes from what the user is actually trying to do. So you have this paradox of, well, there's really cool software is out here, but it almost makes the problem I'm trying to solve more complex. What I'm really focused on is making sure that we don't lose sight of the fact that we are at our core operators. And so we want to make sure that when we're building a solution, it's functional to the operators that are using it because we've been in that position before.
Mm, awesome. Yeah, I'll leave a link in the show notes.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Pete. It's been really great to be on the show today with you.